So the next session today is really all about the IoT side of things and how we can use IoT to optimize the supply chain. So the next speaker is going to be Kelly Schulz. Kelly's our sonar product manager, and Kelly's really been responsible, the one that's been building that sonar solution now for quite some time, and really trying to make it work and working with our customers to get it improved and better. But she's going to talk to us a little bit about how to use that IoT to optimize the supply chain. So she's product manager for that tool, really looking at partnering with the users, your users out there, bringing back information so that we can design it successfully and we can build it and develop that tool to really help the guys on the farms ultimately to do their job even better. Kelly earned an engineering degree in digital arts and sciences from the University of Florida. So Kelly, without any more ado from me, please join me up here and take over the mic.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be here finally after 2-3 years of doing everything remotely. It's awesome that we can be here together in person to see some of you that I haven't seen in a long time and meet new faces. So I'm really excited to be here today. I want to make sure to note that I would love to hear your feedback during the session. I'm going to stop a lot for questions. Feel free to jump in if you have questions as I go. I definitely, like Jim said, we're really interested in what you guys feel about our IoT solution, so stop me anytime if you have questions. My name is Kelly Schulz. Some of you may know me as Kelly Mills, but during the pandemic, I got married, and now I'm Kelly Schulz. I have been with MTech, thank you. I've been with MTech for about 8 years. I started in tech support and worked there for a few months. From there, I worked in project management, so I worked with some of you on your projects, mostly on the broiler side, so the broiler module, broiler planning, and a lot of settlements. About, I want to say 6 years ago, we started the product development department, and I moved over to that department, mostly working on version 7. And about 5 years ago, we started the sonar product, and now I'm the full-time sonar product manager. So IoT is everywhere. This is a picture of my 2 beautiful puppies, Juno and Petunia, and even they use IoT, Internet of Things. So you can kind of see it maybe on their collars. They have little boxes, and these are little IoT devices. It tracks how many minutes they exercise, how long they're sleeping, eating, drinking, scratching, everything about their health and wellness, it's tracking them. Most importantly for me, it tracks their location, which is awesome. I know if they get out, then I can quickly and easily find them. So IoT really is everywhere in our everyday lives. You're using it whether you know it or not. And it almost feels like every company has some sort of IoT solution that they're offering. The poultry industry is no different. About 5 years ago, we started the sonar product, and it really came out of a need for better data for our supply chain modules. So we weren't getting enough data to make these predictions and optimize these modules that we have, and we needed a way to get good quality data from the farms. So today I kind of want to take you through our sonar journey, where we started, where we were in the past, where we are today, and where we're going in the future. So let's get started. So for some of you, this may still be a reality. When you have hundreds and hundreds of farms and hundreds of houses, you may or may not have them connected to some sort of cloud solution. If they are connected, it's probably a lot of different cloud solutions because of all the different types of hardware that you might have installed. So in order to get around this and get the data off the farms, many people have a tech advisor visiting the farms, writing data points down on a sheet of paper. They bring it back to the office, and a clerk keys it in to protein or amino. This is great It works, but it's very, very manual. So some of you have leveled up from this, and maybe you're using an application like Radius or Amino App to have the tech advisor key in the data while they're on the farm. That's awesome. Some of you I know have leveled up a little bit more in that you have the growers directly entering the data. These are awesome solutions, but it's very, very manual. When you have a manual process, you have these opportunities for miskeying data, bad data coming in. You're not going to get it very often. It's definitely not going to be real time. And it's very expensive to do all these manual processes. One of the main data points that we really care about is the feed inventory. And to get this today, people have other people climbing feed bins to get the feed inventory, and as we all know, this is extremely dangerous. Or you might have the people who throw the rock at the feed bin, listen for the sound, and extrapolate what inventory is in the bin, and we all know that has varying levels of accuracy, to say the least. So that's a huge problem. And also bird weights. This is another big data point that we really want off the farm. A very, very manual process. And at best, it's happening once or twice a flock, if at all. You're getting a small sample of the weights, and it takes a long time to do. So what's the solution? This is where we offer sonar. This is a very high-level diagram, architecture diagram of what sonar is. You can see on the left here, we have the houses. And they're connected to, in this case, Echo hardware. We have a lot of hardware options that Matthew's going to cover, but for this purpose, we're going to go with Echo. So this house has these sensors installed. It's sending data every 15 minutes to the Sonar Cloud. The Sonar Cloud is fully hosted in Microsoft Azure, and it has a lot of very complicated technology and advanced technology to take in all this data every 15 minutes from all of these houses, process all this data, and turn it into something that's useful. Transform the data into something that is readable and usable by the end users. So that's our Sonar Cloud. On top of the cloud, we have two applications called Sonar App, which is a native app you can download from the app stores, Google and iOS app stores. And we also have Sonar Web, which is a web-based application. You can access it from any browser that you use. One of the most important pieces of this diagram is the protein and amino connection. So like I said at the beginning, we started Sonar for a need to improve our supply chain modules. So the most important piece of this whole puzzle is connecting it back to protein or amino. It works the same way with both. So you can see over here we have the protein database, or amino, and it has a two-way connection. So as you're entering data that's relevant to Sonar into protein, it's automatically, immediately sending that data up to the Sonar Cloud. So you can think of new flocks, placement transactions, feed transactions, anything that's relevant to data on the farm, that gets uploaded to Sonar. Likewise, data every night gets downloaded back from Sonar back to protein. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later, but that is one of the most important pieces that I want to cover today. I'll stop there for a second. Any questions so far on this diagram or anything we've covered? None? Okay, cool. So I want to walk you through some of the features that we have in Sonar. I'm going to start with Sonar App. This, like I said, is a native application that you can download from the app stores. And this is the screen that users will see when they open the application. It's called our benchmarking screen. You can view this two ways, by company or by past flocks, but the calculation behind them is the same thing. Basically, what we do is we take your current flock. So if we're looking at this farm that's 22 days old, what are the performance metrics in terms of depletion, bird weight, and feed consumption? From that, we calculate what is your cost per pound that you're producing today. We then group you with every single flock in your same grow out of the same product. So if we say all the flocks in Atlanta, Georgia, growing for MTech systems, and they're 22 days old and they're big birds, how is everybody else performing? And we compare that group to your current active flocks or flocks sold in the past 6 months. So we basically rank everybody by their cost per pound, and then we provide you this benchmarking score that kind of tells you where you land in that ranking. So you can think of it as a percentile. If you're 50%, you're dead average. You're right, doing exactly what we expect you to do. It's not good, it's not bad, you're average. Anything above 50% is good, you're better than average. Anything below is worse than average. The same exact calculation happens for past flocks, but instead of comparing you to other farms in the company, it's just that grower against their past 5 or 6 flocks. So the purpose of this, why do we give you these scores? The value and the purpose for the user is really to help you focus your efforts in the right places. If you are a tech advisor and you have a ton of farms that are doing really well, but maybe you have 3 or 4 that are in the red, maybe that's where you need to focus your efforts today. So it's kind of a gauge to give you an idea of maybe what route you should take, who needs extra help, and who's doing really well on their own. So of course, in Sonar app, you can monitor all of your farms and all of your houses. So you can see a list of every farm that you have access to. It's all permission-based. When you click on a farm, you will see all the houses of that farm and all the sensor data that you have installed. So if you have temperature, humidity, water, you can see all of the current values for that house and for every house on that farm. If you want to drill into any of those data points, you can click on them and it will give you more information about that sensor. So right now we're looking at temperature, and they have many sensors installed, and you can see day by day what is the average temperature for this flock. If you want to drill into any history day for the current flock, you can go to the history tab, you'll select a day, and now you can access the hourly data for every day for this flock. So this is really powerful. It works the same way for every sensor that you have connected to Sonar. But basically what it means is that for all of these data points, you can get to hourly data right in the app for every single sensor, for every active flock out there. So it becomes really powerful when you think of what you can do with this data. Alerts. This is a big piece of Sonar, and it's really important to this platform. Obviously, we give you the basic types of threshold alerts. So if you set a minimum and maximum temperature by day for how a flock should be heated or ventilated, we'll send you a push notification if you go outside of that threshold. So if you go above the max or below the min, we'll send you a notification. We have a lot of basic alerts like that, but where we're really focusing our efforts is more on the pattern-based alerts. So maybe your flock is gaining weight, but it's plateauing a little bit. The weight gain is still increasing, but not at the slope or the rate that we would expect it to. We'll also send you a push notification for that. And that's really where we're gearing future notifications, and this data analysis is for identifying these patterns. And even when something looks okay at face value, maybe there's an underlying issue that you don't know about, and that's what we want to alert you on. Events. This is one of our most used features, most favorited, especially among the growers. What you're looking at here is a list of upcoming and past events. And what this means is when you are using the supply chain modules in protein or amino, when you post that schedule, so if you post a BRPA movement schedule, a BRPA processing schedule, or when you create your feed loads, build the feed loads, those will automatically get uploaded to Sonar. This is super popular among the growers because, as you guys probably all know, in order to get this information historically, they're calling the feed mill saying, hey, when is my next feed delivery? I need feed right now. And the feed mill gets bombarded with all of these phone calls from all the growers all the time. Same with the processing plants, when are you going to come pick up my birds? So this has become really popular, especially with the growers, so that they know automatically when your schedule is finalized, they know exactly what's going to happen. They don't have to call anybody. If you change your schedule, it gets updated in Sonar, and they don't have to make all these phone calls. The feed mill doesn't have to take in all these phone calls and spend time communicating to the growers just for that. The same thing happens for past events. So when you do the actual placement, the actual feed ticket, deliveries, haulbacks, debits, credits, anything that you do, and actual processing, actual condemnation transactions, those also immediately get uploaded to Sonar, and the grower can see it. This is really cool because we've seen people identify issues in the feeding tickets specifically. If a feed gets delivered to the wrong house, they can identify it immediately and say, hey, I see this ticket is in here. I actually didn't get it to that house. They went to a different house, and you can quickly resolve issues. So again, this is really, really popular, especially among growers and TAs, to help with the transparency and communication between the integrator and the growers. So analytics. This is really important. There's a lot of different ways to visualize your data and see the data throughout Sonar app, but this is one of the also the most popular screens, and it's called the comparison screen. And what we're looking at here basically is your current flock compared to your last flock. So right now this flock is 25 days old. These are all the KPIs for today, all the sensor data, and it's side by side with all of the data for the same day of the last flock. If you want to drill into any specific KPI, maybe your weight looks weird or your feed conversion, you can use that little drop down that you're gonna see clicked right now, and you can pick any KPI and see a side-by-side line graph of the current versus the last flock. And this grid gives you those data points printed out so you can easily see where you went right, where you went wrong, maybe where things spiked when they didn't last flock. So it's really awesome for the grower to see, forget about what the company wants me to do or what the benchmarking score says. This is me compared to myself. And it gives them a good idea of maybe where they'll settle. Of course, there are a lot of other factors into that, but it gives them an idea of how they're doing. I'm going to stop there. This is mostly all of Sonar app. Any questions so far? Yes?
Are you getting growers buying where they do like a split cost a lot system? Because it seems like a lot of this is benefiting the growers. Are they paying partial on a lot of like the bigger implementations?
Yeah, it's a very good question. He basically asked about how do people pay for this or split the cost between the growers and the integrators. The honest answer is everybody has done it differently. Some people have upgraded contracts if you have something connected to an IoT device, so they're giving them the benefit that way, and the growers are buying it themselves. Some people flat out buy it for a whole complex. We've kind of seen every variation and flavor of it. But what you did mention is that this does seem very grower focused. I'm going to get into Sonar Web, which is way more integrator focused. So we kind of have a difference there. Yes?
So, just curious, and if this gets shot down right off the bat, just out of curiosity, and if this gets shot down, I'm totally accepting of that. Just wondering as you guys increase the number of places that are using Sonar, is there any plan to possibly anonymize that data and use it to basically compare your performance, similar to AgriStats?
Yeah, it's definitely a thought that we've had. We haven't taken any specific action in that direction yet, but for sure, I mean, when you think about if 98% of the US uses MTech products, and if they use Sonar, then you really can see maybe that benchmarking compared to everybody in your region and not just your company. Marcel wants to jump in. I said something wrong, probably.
It's a good question, but it's we all know how dangerous we all know how dangerous that path can go. So we've looked into this. If we ever get into that level, it has to be completely done totally different. The way the aggregation is done, the way the whole project went with AgriCells and stuff like that, something we couldn't even talk here. And it's very delicate for us to do that. I mean, you all know the whole thing. So we stay clear for it for right now. But yeah, this comes up all the time. Why is MTech not doing benchmarking for us across all the customers and everything like that? And I think you know the reason for right now.
Hi, we're based out of Minnesota, so obviously seasonality is a big thing. So on this comparison, can you do more than just the last flock, since it could be winter and summer, we'd be completely different?
For sure, that's a good question. We did just do the one last flock on that comparison because maybe this season doesn't change too much within 1 or 2 flocks. On the benchmarking by past flocks, we have a setting. Basically, you can say, compare if you use the past 5 flocks or 6 flocks or however many is your standard. You can do that setting there. Right now, this comparison specifically is just against the last flock, but it's a good point. We could let you pick, which flock to compare to the same flock last year, maybe. So yeah, that's a good question, a good point. Yes.
On the feed projections it showed, are the growers able to change that projection, or do they have to call into the feed mill to change that?
Also a very good question that we get a lot. Today, it is read-only. But a lot of people do request that there's maybe a button that says edit or request change, something like that. So that's definitely in our roadmap to communicate something back to the feed mill, like, hey, I want it a day later, a day earlier, a different house. But yeah, today, right now, it is read-only. So they cannot do anything. Oh.
Before you went into this slide, you talked about events. Can you build events in here that says if humidity's off by this %, can you configure that in the system?
No, today these events are all events from protein or amino. So it's all from your supply chain, BRPA, FDSA, and then the actual BRIM and FMIM modules. So today, yeah, it's coming straight from protein, from what the integrator is planning and has posted and finalized. Yes, Evan?
What about alerts? Can you say if humidity and temperature are over a certain amount, you throw an alert?
Yes, we covered that. Yes, we have rate of change alerts. So if the humidity or temperature spikes by a certain amount or more than you expect or drops, we give you alerts based on that also. Okay, I'm gonna go into Sonar Web real quick. Oh, sorry.
Is there any plan to have a workflow for, like, say, you're triggering the workflow with an alert, but then the workflow triggers tasks, so it gets completed?
Yes. Hold that thought. I'm going to get to that very soon. Cool. Okay, so Sonar Web, you all mentioned before that Sonar app feels very grower focused, and it is. It's really geared towards the grower and the TA specifically because you're working with one farm at a time, specific houses. You're getting really into the data for a specific sensor in a specific house on a specific day. So it's very detailed in Sonar app. Sonar Web is the web-based product. You can use it in any browser, and it is more geared towards the integrator. So you can do setting stuff, user creation, threshold, entering all those thresholds and settings, but mainly it's about the analytics. So recently, in the past few months, we embedded Power BI into Sonar Web, and we've seen a lot of value with using this. You basically get all of the BI functionality that you expect from a BI tool right in Sonar Web. So what we're looking at here is called an all active flocks dashboard. And it is when you get to work in the morning and you want to know what's going on, this is where you'll go. You can see a map of all the farms that you have with Sonar, and you can hover over them to see all of the data currently at that farm, and it's color coded by that benchmarking score that we talked about. If this is a really cool example, actually, of the interactivity that you get with a BI tool. So when you click on one chart, it filters everything else, and you can start to do some really cool analysis like that. If you wanted to drill into any specific farm, maybe it's a red farm that's having issues or a green farm and you want to know what they're doing well, you can click on it and view details, and you're going to get a specific drilled down dashboard just for that flock. So you can see everything that we're capturing for this active flock. You can compare houses to each other to see maybe you have a house that's an outlier or performing poorly or really well. And you can also do flock level comparisons, so comparing it to thresholds or standards or comparing KPIs to each other. So this is really the one-stop shop where you can do all of that deep analysis for any farm that has sonar. We have a lot of out-of-the-box dashboards curated by MTech with charts that we've built, and we've seen people have value from these dashboards. We have ones for active flock comparisons, sold flock comparisons, all history flocks for a single farm, feed dashboards, bird weight dashboards. So we have a lot of out-of-the-box stuff that can get you going and analyzing your data right away. But I always know that there's going to be some custom things that everybody wants to do. So we have a section called My Dashboards, and this is where you can build whatever you want. You can create any dashboard, any chart. All of the sonar data is available to you to chart it any way and visualize it any way that you need. So the way I like to think about this specifically, as we've been talking about AI a lot, is if you have a situation where maybe you had an AI outbreak, this could be a great scenario where you want to build a custom dashboard just for a certain set of flocks, maybe in a certain area. You can filter by grow out, product, dates, anything you can think of, tech advisors. You have that capability to view that data. So this is really, if there's something missing from the sonar dashboards that you need, this is where you can get everything, access to all of the data that we're collecting, and make anything that you need. You can also share these with other people. So if you make an awesome dashboard that you want to show everybody else, you can share that with anybody in your company who is also using sonar. And the last piece I want to talk about is the connection to protein and amino. Like I said earlier, this is the most important piece and why we started this whole journey with sonar. It's very simple. It's probably the simplest piece that we have of sonar, but again, it's the most important. So what we're looking at here is field transactions. The connection to protein is an amino. It works exactly the same way. It's just that every single night, you get a download of one record for every house that has sonar, and it has all the sonar data on it. So temperature high, low, humidity, water, feed inventories, feed consumption, bird weights, everything you're capturing, gas consumption, power consumption, anything you're capturing on the farm comes back to protein and amino. And when you think about how we can use this data right out of the box without any effort from anybody to improve our supply chain, it's really massive. So if you just think about the feed scheduling, if your feed mill had an accurate inventory from every house every night, your feed scheduling is so simple. You can eliminate all those issues where you are running out of feed on farms or delivering feed to a farm that is already full, or you can really minimize your haulbacks, which, as we know, is a huge cost to the feed mill. The other piece is the BRPA. So same concept. You have these bird weights coming in for every single farm in your grow out. Now your BRPA scheduling, the short range processing schedule, is going to use that data and better project how much all these flocks are going to weigh and make sure that you're optimizing that kill schedule. So you're picking up the right farms. You're not getting farms that are too small to process. You're not getting farms that you missed and they're too big out of your target range. You're really optimizing all of these supply chain modules using this sonar data out of the box. I'll stop there for a second. Questions on this piece, because I know it's important. Yes, Casey?
Okay. So on you were showing the app in the web, Sonar Web with the map.
Yes.
So is there an ability, talking about avian influenza here, if like with our production it's a lot closer than that, is there a way to, say I wanted to look at a 5-mile radius from a specific farm to look at water consumption to see if my water per bird is dropped, to see if I've seen any effects from that AI outbreak to somewhere else? Or is that a capability?
We don't have it today, but I definitely want to talk to you more about it because we have had that kind of similar requests. For instance, right now you're looking at the colors based on benchmarking, so it's red, yellow, green, blue is empty. But to be able to change that to say, show me my map based on water per bird, or bird weights, or feed conversion, or let me pick the KPI to show across this map. However, I haven't found a great way to actually visualize that data. So we should definitely work together. I want to know what you think and how we can show that visually without, putting a bunch of numbers on something. So yeah, let's definitely talk about that for sure. Yes, can we get over here? Thank you.
So the tool has the capacity to be proactive, like tell the farm increase the temperature in 2 degrees and you will get a better feed conversion or ventilation or things like that?
Good question. Not today, but that is on my next slide. We'll talk about what's coming in the future. That's our vision for sure. How do we give you prescriptive analytics? But yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that more in a second. Any other questions so far? Yes. Oh.
Okay. Is there an ability to add custom fields and bring in a customized data so I can use it to benchmark my input, my results?
Not today. So Sonar is really focused on sensor data. So it's not so much about entering data, it's about capturing automatic data. We want to make sure it's coming in every 15 minutes. We want that regular real-time data to do all these calculations. But to answer your question, if you have custom fields in protein or amino, all this data is coming back. So you could do all of those types of KPIs and benchmarking in amino, in Axis, or in reports, or whatever you want to do. So that's kind of the beauty. In Sonar, we kind of keep it specific to Sonar data. But all that data is yours. It's coming back into these main systems where you can do whatever you need with it. Cool. Okay. So the future, where are we going? What's the next step? Sonar, we only began about 5 years ago, so this is a kind of a brand new product for us still, and we're continuously doing new development, adding new features, hearing feedback from all of you. It's really important so that we can make sure we provide the best product for you all. So additional machine learning. Everybody's kind of talked about how important the data science team and machine learning is to this product, and I can't stress that enough. So one thing that we're working on first is data cleansing. We already do some, but we're trying to make it better and better. If you think about having hundreds and hundreds of houses with all of this hardware installed, you're going to have issues. There are going to be problems. It's inevitable. So to make sure we're cleansing the data as it's coming into Sonar, making sure that bad data doesn't make its way all the way to protein or amino, because as we all know, bad data can sometimes be worse than no data at all for a supply chain module. If you get bad feed inventories, it's going to have a negative impact on your feed scheduling. So We're really, really focused on cleansing the data, making sure that only quality data gets back into all of your systems. Secondly, as predictions, we have bird weight projections. Evan talked about this a little bit. We have feed consumption projections. So that's a continuous process. We're always putting out new algorithms, making the algorithms better, retraining with more data. So we're always trying to make sure those algorithms are improving, and that's going to be a continuous process. The last piece is the analysis and data insights, which personally is the most exciting to me. When, again, you think about the power of all this data, what can we do with having all of this sensor data, and we have all of the data that we're collecting in amino and protein. When we bring that data together, the limit of what we can do with that data is unmatched. We don't even know what we don't know yet. We don't know what patterns we can find. We're starting this process of seeing these data insights. Again, Evan mentioned, we found about preheating your houses, how that has an impact at bird weights at the end, preheating before the flock, but also if you do half house or center house brooding. So things like that is really where we're focusing sonar and where we're taking it in the next days, months, years, is to provide these data insights. Prescriptive analytics, this is what you asked about earlier. So today we do a really great job in sonar of descriptive analytics, which means what happened. What happened the last flock, what's happening right now. We also do a really good job with predicting. So if you don't change anything, what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. What we want to get to is more of the prescriptive analytics. And this uses all the data insights that we're going to find and tell you what to do. So you need to turn on your fans at these times, or you need to open the inlets, or you need to do this when you're going to change feed. All of these things that we can start suggesting to people because we have collected all this data and done all this machine learning on it. That's our vision for sonar. We're not there yet, but that's where we're going. Of course, additional species. Today we support all of poultry, so chickens, turkeys, layers, breeders, and broilers. So we definitely want to do more work on the breeder side, breeder-specific KPIs and dashboards, but also getting into additional species like swine. That's our biggest one that a lot of people are asking for. So we're working on adding it for sonar swine. And then, of course, any species we add in the future to amino would also have support for sonar. Example, aquaculture, hemp, anything that comes up. A deeper integration with amino, I've kind of talked about this already, but I really want to stress the power of having all this data together. We need to bring this data together in more ways between amino and sonar to make sure you're getting the most out of this data. It's impacting your supply chain as much as possible, and we're using it in every way we can to make sure that we're optimizing all of the supply chain modules. And lastly, additional hardware partnerships. Today we partner with about 18 different hardware vendors. We're always expanding that, always wanting to work with new hardware vendors that you might have installed on your farms. It's a very simple process to integrate with hardware vendors. We have an API that they can send data to, and it's pretty straightforward. So we're continually working with new people, trying to get partnerships with new hardware vendors with the help of you all. So that will be a continuous process also. And that's everything. Any other questions? Yes, Simon. Oh boy. Here we go.
Ellie may not love me for this one, but so one thing we're also working that I'm quite excited and she's involved is, and this is on the works. We don't even have a good name yet, but I'm going to call it for today MTech TV. So we're actually now going to have a version that's going to be able to go on a big screen. Think about a screen on a live operations office or an exec team office, but it's going to be more an interactive type sonar version. So not about you clicking, but it runs on the big TVs to be able to deliver some key information for top management as they go to the offices. So that's also on the works. It'll be a separate product. So I had to sell something today, but that's it. Oh no, not Jim, not Jim. You got it. That's it.
Yes, Ari.
Kelly, I'm just curious how engaged your security team is with the planning and development of, and maybe the deployment of these IoT devices to accomplish.
Extremely, yes. Yeah, one big thing that I should have said earlier, but point I want to stress, when we have connections to controllers or IoT sensors in the field, it is one way. It only goes from the sensors up to sonar. There is nothing that goes from sonar back down to the sensors. So that's a very important distinction to make. We're not making any changes, or we don't even have access to change anything about a controller or a sensor. So yeah, our CTO is directly involved all the time with how the sonar infrastructure is built and what kind of architecture and technologies that we're using. And he's, of course, very, very aware of all the security concerns that people might have. So it's definitely top of mind as we develop new features.
And Greg, also one point is that, as Marcel mentioned in the beginning, the SOC compliancy, that whole audit process we keep on doing on a quarterly basis, sonar is part of it. So it's all within the whole compliance also as well.
Yes.
Hi. Is there any plan to introduce IoT sensor in the hatchery side?
That's a good question. We don't have plans today, but it is a question I've gotten before. So I definitely think it's a possibility in the future. Today, we're specifically focused on connecting farms and starting there with all this data to see what we can do with all of that before we take on another set of sensors. But yeah, I've definitely heard that before, so it's definitely in our, we're thinking about it for sure.
But one point to that on the hatcheries is that, and that's right, I mean, it's a great question because it's got to happen. It's part of the journey, right? And then feed mills as well. Out of the hatcheries, I do want to share, we do have a partnership with the Zoetis group with the machine, the ovo injection machine. So that's one partnership that is up and running, and there's a Zoetis friend here with us. But so we're getting data from the machine, and we keep on improving that amount of data. So that's the beginning of the IoT, Marco, but we still plan on doing more. But that project is up and running, and it's quite good for the industry.
Yes, Jim?
Do you actually have anybody yet who has got on-prem version 7 and connected live to sonar? Because we've taken that step yet.
That's our most common installation today. I mean, as you guys all probably know, most people here are on version 7 still, and a lot of people are on-premise. Of course, there's an update that has to happen, not necessarily an upgrade. If you're on really old versions, then maybe there is an upgrade that needs to happen. But yes, we have a lot of companies who are bringing data back into Protein, having it improve their feed scheduling, having it improve their BRPA projections. So that's definitely happening today, and it's our most common use case that we have so far. Any other questions? No? Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody.